Newcastle University, UK, where he also worked as a teaching assistant. He has been teaching linguistics in the Faculty of Education, University of Kufa since September 2010. So ضياء has participated in several academic workshops in UK, United States, universities, US universities. He also participated in several conferences in UK, Malta, and Denmark. His research interests are centered on critical discourse studies, language and in politics, nationalism, racism, prejudice, discrimination, argumentation, as well as populism in various digital media practices. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I would like to start off by thanking you for your attendance today, and thank you for my previous colleague who introduced very excellent and interesting and good topic. So basically, my topic is about worthy and unworthy victims, in examining the discourse of U.S. press in different time spans, especially on the wars that Iraq was involved in, and in different times. So this is my topic. The first thing is the content. I'm going to introduce or to explain something, to say something about the aims, the rationale behind the study, and the data selection and collection, the methodology, and then the construction of Halabja, the Kurds in the two wars. And by the two wars, I mean the Iran-Iraq war and the US-led invasion. And the last one is the construction of Iraqi people in the two wars, the same wars. And the last thing is the concluding remarks. So, as you know, that Iraq have been involved into different wars, like Iran-Iraq war, the Desert Storm, the US-led invasion, the sectarian divide, and the last one was the war on ISIS, and only God knows what's going to be next. The wars I'm going to examine in the US press are the Iran-Iraq war and the US-led invasion. Only these two wars. And the rationale behind that is that in the US politician speeches, there were always references to the Iran-Iraq war and the events happened in the Iran-Iraq war at that time. For instance, in order to invade Iraq, the justification was that Saddam Hussein used the chemical weapons, or what they call the master destruction weapons. And he killed his own people, he killed the Shia people, and he also attacked a neighboring country, which is Iran. So all these justifications were used in order to attack Iraq in 2003. So that's why I chose to examine these two wars only. So references to earlier wars and the US government, and also it is one important thing to mention, I forgot to say that the US government stance in these two wars also is different. When the in the Iraq-Iran war, the US was allied with Iraq. In 2003, it was totally different. It was against Iraq, and it was going to invade Iraq. The aims of the research is to examine the discursive construction of Iraqi people in the Iran-Iraq war and the US-led invasion, the two wars, and to understand the US press stance or the journalistic practices in the time of peace and the war. The data collection. So where I use the LexisNexis. It's an online platform where you can get your own data, especially the newspaper, American newspaper, or the UK newspaper, or basically you can get your newspaper from everywhere in the world, in different languages. So in order to collect my data, I use different keywords in order to retrieve only the relevant articles. So when is that? I use two different spans, as I mentioned already. So the 8 years war and the US-led invasion. I took 7 weeks, 1 week earlier or prior to the US-led invasion, which is the propaganda week, and till the time when Bush announced that mission accomplished. So basically, before the start of the war till the end, it was 7 weeks only. The software, I used different software. For instance, the sketch engine, I used Wordsmith in addition to the other online platforms to analyze my data. So the analysis process, the first thing I used word frequency to look for particular words in the US press. The second thing I use for collocates. By collocates, I can judge or I can see the patterns or what are the ideology behind that and what is the most frequent things or things most frequent words that mentioned during a particular area. The concordances lines and categorization, the semantic categorization, and the last one I used the critical discourse analysis, in particular discourse historical approach. So the first thing I examined is the discourse on Halabja, and we all know Halabja. It is the northern part or the northern region in the north of Iraq, as we know, called Kurdistan. It is the dependent area. It is controlled by the Kurdish people, and the population is about, at that time in 1988, 40,000 people. This is, however, that number was increased by those who influxed outside the area, or those traveled or became immigrants from other areas in the Kurdistan. Who controlled the area? You know, the Peshmerga, the Kurdish fighter controlled it. The importance of that, it is very important area and a strategic area because it contained the Darbanjahan dam that supplied the water to the capital, Baghdad. So by the Iranian army seizing the Halabja, they will control two dams that basically support the electricity to Baghdad and many areas in Iraq. So this is the strategic importance for the Halabja. So the attack on the 13th of March 1988, okay, there was a joint attack by the Iranian army with the Kurdish fighters, the Peshmerga, who attacked and entered and seized 800 square kilometer from the Iraqi soil. And as a reaction or retaliation, the Iraqi attacked and used different chemical weapons like napalm or phosphorus. And the last one, which is more stronger one, it used a cocktail of chemical, very powerful chemical that caused people to die, and the casualties were from 3 to 5,000 people who get killed, and more than 10,000 people who get injured or wounded. So this is the context. I provided the whole context. Now I'm going to talk about the report. Okay, reporting Halabja in the Iran-Iraq war at that time. So the US press categorized by conveying different opinions. So what Iran and Iraq say about each other. So they accuse each other. They say they assert on what each other says about the other. So the charges, the claims, the accusation, etc. So this is basically what was the period. So how each one reported the other. So, however, there was a bit of a slanting or weighting to the Iranian story version of story. The slanting was by giving more details to the Iranian story than the Iraqi one, because Iraq did the chemical attack, but at that time Iraq denied that. Iraq said that it's Iran who did that, not Iraq. Okay, so the US press trying to say that Iraq who did that, but it was indirectly, using, for instance, giving more details or following what the Iranian said about Iraq. So in this example, we can see, meanwhile, Iranian War Ministry officials presented 28 Iraqi army officers in a separate news conference, including 2 officers who said that they had witnessed Iraqi warplanes drop chemical bombs on Halabja. Okay? Well, also by taking Western correspondents or the media to the place of the incident to say that it is not us, it is the Iraqis. Okay? Halabja survivors, by interviewing Halabja survivors, said in interviews that they were certain that the gas attack was launched from an Iraq warplane. Also by saying implicitly, by using different linguistic expressions, for instance, repeatedly denied, as we know that someone who did something but refused to say that I did it. So denied here implied that Iraq done this action or did the attack. Generally avoided direct denials, did not contradict the claim. So if you are not contradicting the claim, it means that there are many suspects about you. Neither confirm nor denies using chemical weapons. If you are not neither confirm or deny, then you are the doer. This is the implication. This is the implicator. So the context, the whole context in the Iraq-Iran war was given in the newspaper, okay? Because at that time, the United States was allied to Iraq. Examples, it says that the gas attack came during a large military offensive. So it's implicitly say why Iraq used the chemical weapons against the Iranian and the Kurdish people. So it is like there was a justification for that. So the motive behind Iraq action seemed to have been prevent a further advance on an important hydrochloric dam, an effort to hold the Iranian advance. This is the story and the reporting in the Iran-Iraq war. Now the story will be different after 15 years. This is America now trying to justify the invasion on Iraq. So the story will be Halabja for the argument for we call it the argument for precedent. So now they try to link the Halabja to Saddam Hussein in order to invade Iraq. So everything now is linked to Saddam Hussein, and he was constructed as the one who attacked Halabja and killed the fighters. So Hussein's forces attacked villagers from Halabja. In 1988, he allegedly ordered poison gas dumped on the Kurdish town of Halabja to punish militants. So today is the 15th anniversary of Saddam Hussein's horrific chemical weapons. So also we can see the concordance lines that it is constructed to that Saddam killed his own people for the purpose only for killing, rather than there was an attack from another country on Iraq. So it was constructed as a war between 2 countries, or Iran entered the Iraqi soil and Iraq attacked the Kurdish and the Iranian as a reaction or as a retaliation. So it is the whole story was shortened that Saddam is killing his own people, because the country at that time in 2003 was hyper personalized, or as Lakoff says, it is a country in one person. One person, Saddam Hussein, represents the whole country, Iraq. Okay, so targeting Saddam Hussein, demonizing him, the United States is able to attack Iraq. Halabja as a continuous crime. So although it happened at that time, I'm speaking in 2003, although it happened 15 years ago, okay, but it is constructed as something continuous by the United States, showing that proliferating reports of after effects or symptoms defects and other disease caused by to people who witnessed the incident and later generations who did not die. An example of that, today the people of Halabja suffer from high rates of birth defects, cancer and blindness, and may have respiratory illness. Okay, so it shows that although it happened in the past, but the effect is still now. Okay? argument from gradualism. So the case of Halabja is used to argue that Saddam killed his own people, okay, or Iraq has now chemical weapons. So they use the past to justify the actions that is going to happen in the future. So to justify something happened in the past. So to say that Iraq has a chemical weapons and Saddam has a history, so he is not hesitant to commit any crime. Dramatization of victim stories, exemplifications that selecting some people to narrate what they have gone through. So one of the victims says, my brother, my husband's brother, and counting on her finger the men missing from her family, they have all been killed. We have all been damaged by Saddam Hussein. So telling different story by interviewing the victims. Now these people become important. Why they become important while they were not reported at the Iran-Iraq war? They become only important when the United States needed them, because here they become worthy because they serve their own interests and their purposes, which is they fit the propaganda in order to invade Iraq. This is another example from one of the victims. It was a life frozen, life that stopped, like watching a film and suddenly it hangs on one frame. So it's like narration, reminding the people that it is an appeal for emotion, raising the emotion of the people or their pity. So it is telling that the global community that we have to go to Iraq to get rid of Saddam Hussein and just get him away off our road. Okay, so by that the United States press says highlighting something, okay, highlighting the problem, okay, creating a devil, by creating the devil and ask their media to communicate it to the people, so that the human rights and many activists communicated and say it repetitively in order to stop, in order to invade. So reason for that, to show that Saddam has a history of mass murder, to show Saddam's position of chemical weapons, to show that he is capable of any crime and he is not hesitant to use the chemical weapons, to demonize him, and that Halabja incident is used as precedent argument to justify change in the existing position, okay, to convince the whole world and especially the United Nations to take an action of the resolution in order to invade Iraq. Construct Saddam as a threat to the neighboring country, US and the entire world. Now this is the case of Halabja. Now the case of Iraqi people. They are mentioned their frequency. This is in the Iran-Iraq war. Sorry. This is the one in the blue in the Iraq-Iran war. We can see only 30 frequencies or only 30 mentions of Iraqi people in the whole 8 years. Okay, while the other one in only 7 weeks we can see 1,593 mentions of frequency for their appearance or occurrence in the US press. This is a huge difference in terms of reporting. That tells us that there is a propaganda, and now Iraqi people have become more worthy, and now they are a case that the United States focus on, so that an action should be taken in order to free them. So the first theme that occurs in the data is the theme of victimization. They become worthy victim, as Herman and Chomsky always describe people abused in enemy state as they are constructed as worthy victims. Example of that, it will also free the long-suffering Iraq people who have endured one of the cruelest and longest murderous dictatorship of the past half-century. So as we know, after the Iran-Iraq war, we know the embargo, so millions of people died, but nobody paid attention to the Iraqi people, and they were not paid attention to. And after that, in 2003, many people died. But now, exactly in 2003, they become important. So the purpose was showed that we want to go to Iraq to free them. Now, in order to free Iraqi people, they are constructed that beneficiaries of the liberation. Okay, so different collocates that show that they are beneficiaries. For instance, the oils and all the fortunes Saddam has will go or belongs to Assad will all go to the Iraqi people. It is their own money. It is their oil. They have to make benefit of their oil. So all the fortune will go to Iraqi people. So it is constructed that they are beneficiaries from the liberation process. As we can see, these are some of concordances lines that shows that the Iraqi as beneficiaries. So the Iraq will benefit from the liberation. U.S. officials say that reserves will be used to the benefit of Iraqi people, the benefit and welfare of the Iraqi people, and etc. And we go to liberate Iraq in order to do what? To make them run their own country, govern their own country. They can choose whatever people they want to rule them, so etc. So it's a kind of empowering them, okay? Some concluding remarks. The U.S., we can see, as we saw, the U.S. press operated as a propaganda machine on the behalf of the officials and using a process of selective shaming. So it is like a turn on and off button, okay? And they can choose whenever they want to turn it on or turn it off, playing on the human rights code. The U.S. press did not maintain their journalistic practices in times of wars and conflicts. The press was guilty of omitting important details. As we can see, we saw in the lecture, many of the details were omitted, particularly that there was an attack by Iran, and Iraq was engaged in a war with another country that entered the soil. And only the favorable parts were left to show and to help to demonize the Iraqi regime. By the way, it is a disclaimer, I'm totally against the Iraqi regime. I'm only trying to show that how the journalistic practices can be violated in different times and in different periods. Over-reliance on officials' versions of events, and the same strategy is still applied now in the Middle East. Now Iran is constructed as the enemy of the United States. That's why the United States and the U.S. press start constructing the Iranian as poor, as victims. They need to be liberated, and it is the similarly for the North Korea. Now they are demonized as having chemical weapons or mass destruction weapons, and it is the same for Syria, and you know everything on the rest of the story, what happened in Syria. Okay, so they have a dictator, okay, and we want to help them by freeing them from the dictator. Thank you.